Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Lincoln Riley and the USC Trojans continue a very impressive run on the 2024 recruiting trail, landing the second best interior offensive lineman from the 2024 class in Jason Zandamela, a very intriguing prospect. Spent most of his childhood playing rugby, and I think at that time they're just like, you're 6'3", 285 pounds, let's get you on a football field. Phenomenal athlete who has such a high ceiling because he hasn't really been playing football for all that long. And so you're seeing a guy that's a top 100 ranked dude with a high ceiling. That's rare to see. And I'm very excited to get and just check this film out before we jumped on. Very impressive athlete. You see this kid is absolutely dripping with potential. And moving over to the Big Ten, a lot of the USC fans in the comment section, we've talked a ton of USC football, saying we got to get the trenches right. We're going to the Big Ten. This is a guy that, if you want to get your trenches right, like Jason Zandamela is certainly doing that for USC. Now, before we get into the prospect, just want to say again, thank you to all the USC fans. We've talked a ton of USC football with how active they've been in the transfer portal and their recruiting on the recruiting trail, and all the love and support the USC fans have shown truly does mean a lot. Like, you guys have been absolutely incredible. So if you do enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. Any commit that happens, we'll be jumping on and talking about it, because any chance I get to talk some USC football, I certainly am, and that is thanks to you guys. So for real, appreciate all the support you guys have shown. Without further ado, let's get into Jason Zandamela. Goes to Clearwater International Academy from the state of Florida, and kind of gets back to what we've been talking about with Lincoln Riley and this USC brand, kind of getting back to that national brand where they're not only just recruiting the West Coast, they're going into Texas, they're going into Georgia and SEC territory and landing guys like Walter Matthews. Now going to Florida, where, I mean, the Gators and Florida State kind of own this area in Clearwater Academy International. USC plucks one of the best offensive line prospects in the 2024 class out of the state of Florida, bringing him to California. And this is a guy I want to just jump into what he brings to the table, because you're going to see what I mean in terms of just the juice that this guy has. He is 6'3", 275 pounds. His athleticism to pull around and play in space and work up to linebackers is incredible. And he also has that mean streak in him. So you're getting an athlete who's also just kind of a mauler and wants to just be physical with these guys. That's probably the most impressive thing when you check is double teams, works up to the second level, picks up linebackers. He is a guy that I think has so much potential, and it's hard to imagine he's still learning this game. And so you get him into a program, maybe redshirt me, or get him up to that 310-pound mark. You're looking at a really impressive, and kind of like Brett Nealon. Like, Brett Nealon was never the biggest guy, but what Brett Nealon did for USC was he was a phenomenal athlete. And when it got to working up to the second level and picking up backers and busting running backs open, he certainly could do that. And I think a guy like Jason Zandamela certainly represents that. Also 6'3", so a little bit of a squattier frame, but that does allow him to play with better leverage. And I don't have a worry in the world about this dude's physicality and his ability to put on size. Again, we've talked about this. USC strength and conditioning coach Benny Wiley is one of the best in the game. He gets these guys right. And Jason Zandamela is a dude that you get him in January as an early enrollee, get him in the weight room for maybe a whole redshirt year. I really do think you're looking at an All-American level center or even guard at the college football level. Taking a look at this class now, and I mean, you're sitting at a top 10 class on the fringe. You check on 3, they have him as a top 10 class, 24/7, 13th class, but only 12 commits. And so you see a lot of those programs with top 10 classes already have 18, 19 commits. Michigan sitting at the number 2 class in the country, my team, 19 commits. And so USC is still a lot of meat on the bone in terms of finishing with the top 8 class, and something we've talked about. Lincoln Riley doing a phenomenal job balancing the transfer portal and high school recruiting. You see a lot of other coaches, I think Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, I was going to call him Hugh Freeze. He's probably a good example too. Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss kind of just hammers the transfer portal and kind of ignores getting guys out of the high school ranks. It's really a hard balance to have, But if you can do it right, I do think that's the recipe to putting national championship contenders. You don't want to be a team that's just relying on the transfer portal, but you also want to be a team that can use the transfer portal and all the talent that's in that transfer portal to supplement what you're doing at the high school ranks. And I think Lincoln Riley doing a phenomenal job. And you take a look at how this class is coming together, specifically on that offensive line. Like Jason Zandamela, a guy that I think has all the potential in the world. You're talking about Manis Ititi coming from California, coming from California, an absolute mammoth, 6'5", 290. And then a guy that I'm really high on, and Hayden Treater coming over from Colorado. We talked about him. You can't teach the 6'6" frame. I heard he's a 6'7". So it's like you have a guy that maybe under the radar, but in a weaker tackle class where you can get a dude that has the frame of being an all-American level tackle, take a swing on him. And so it's coming together really nice. I think they've recruited that cornerback spot extremely well. Marcellus Williams, Dakota Fields, both from California, coming over and playing that cornerback spot, potentially Xavier Brown on the way. And that's kind of rolls us into what could this 2024 class become? You take a look at who they had on campus last weekend. Ryan Pelham getting a lot of momentum for USC. He narrowed it down to USC. In Oregon, we've seen this battle take place plenty of times. It does seem like USC is in the driver's seat in that recruitment. I watched this film this morning. Smooth athlete. When he commits, we'll certainly be talking about him. And that's kind of what we talked about. You see maybe the lack of playmakers in this offense. If there's one program I'm not concerned about in terms of getting offensive talent in, it's Lincoln Riley and USC. And from what I've heard, they're not going to take a quarterback in this 2024 class, which, again, I'm okay with. You have Malachi Nelson in 2023 class. You focus and shift your attention to recruiting a 2025 kid. Lincoln Riley is always going to have his pick of the litter. They put all their eggs in that Dylan Raiola basket, almost could have swung them. Obviously, Georgia comes out and wins it. The last thing I'm concerned about is USC in that quarterback room, as long as Lincoln Riley's there. Taking a look at some other guys that could be joining the ship. I heard Darian Mayo's visit went well as a Michigan guy. He's a very intriguing prospect, kind of a basketball player. Marquise Gallegos, also from California, getting some traction with USC. The last guy I want to talk about, the St. John Bosco kids. I really do think Kingston, Viliamu Asa, and Peyton Woodard, I think there's a way that both of those guys end up in USC's class, especially with all the traction. Kingston, obviously uncommitted, but Peyton Woodard, like the St. John Bosco pipeline, seems to be quite present in this 2024 class. I would like to see USC turn the heat up on those two guys. And then the last guy I want to talk about, Taylor Tatum, the number one running back in the class. Baseball player, too. We talked about it earlier. Deuce Robinson connection. Taylor Tatum is another guy that maybe he talks to Deuce Robinson and say, hey, how does that go with playing two sports? USC getting a lot of traction with him. Comes down to the end of the day what we always talk about. Lincoln Riley getting offensive talent. That's not going to be a problem. What I'm more impressed with, and going back to that 2024 class and the headliners of that 2024 class, are the guys who aren't the skill position, right? Jason Zandamela, Cameron Fountain going into Georgia and taking one of the best defensive linemen in the class and bringing him to USC. That's what I'm most impressed with what Lincoln Riley's doing in this class. And again, it's going to be USC ain't done, right? This is their 13th or 12th or 13th commit of the 2024 class. They're going to keep filling it up. Not many teams, maybe outside of the Florida Gators, hotter than USC on the trail. And again, want to close it out with just saying thank you guys again. You guys, the USC fans, have shown just a ton of love. So if you do enjoy the content, you enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys, and we'll look forward to talking some more USC football soon. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.